Product management interviews are not like any other job interviews. The regular rules do not apply to them. My name is Alex. I conducted hundreds of these interviews as a group product manager at Google. And in this video, I'm going to give you the 6 principles that you must understand to answer any product management interview question. We're going to walk through all 6 of these together one by one. I'll keep you anchored so you always know exactly where we are. And principle number 6 is the one that most often moved my own assessment of a candidate toward a strong hire. So let's dive in. Principle number 1, there is no single right answer to these interview questions. What? No right answer? Yes, correct. And the reason I start off with this one is because it is central to everything else that I'm going to tell you. If the interviewer asks you, design a parking solution for Google Maps, the first thing you need to understand and internalize is that they don't really want to know what your parking solution actually looks like, or rather, that's not the most important element. Instead, the interviewer wants to understand how you arrived at your answer, how you thought about the problem, and the exact steps that you took in your process. Think of it this way. Back in school, if you handed in your math homework with only the final answers, you'd hear the same thing we were always told. Show your work. It's the exact same process here. You can't shortcut your way to an answer in these interviews. If there's no proof, there's no logic, it's an automatic fail. And if you just give me an answer without thinking, that's also an automatic fail. So in product manager interviews, don't chase the right answer. Focus on demonstrating a logical and well-articulated thought process. But before you do so, pay attention to principle number 2. Clarify and disambiguate everything. What do I mean by this? Pause and think to consider the question from a few different viewpoints. Make sure you and the interviewer are actually seeing the same problem. There's nothing worse than making an assumption the interviewer doesn't know about, or not addressing an implicit assumption the interviewer made that you just didn't recognize. Design a product for education, as an example, can go in completely different directions depending on whether you're a product manager at Meta or a founder at a brand new startup. Not clarifying up front can lead you to waste precious time on solving a problem that wasn't really there, and it can be hard or impossible to recover from wasting 5 to 10 minutes of the interview on a wild goose chase. A tactic that I recommend here is to write the question down in its entirety, take a moment and disambiguate every single word in the prompt to find ambiguous and hidden elements. The goal is to define the problem together with the interviewer so you're working on one clear shared target. Let's take an example. Design an onboarding experience for a new Spotify user. Let's break the sentence down. What is an onboarding experience? Well, we could be talking about different modalities. For instance, a new user on mobile or on desktop. That completely changes the question. Also, an onboarding experience to what exactly? The first time a user loads the app, or is it the sign-up process? Or maybe it's onboarding for a particular new feature. What about a new Spotify user? Who is that exactly? It could be a new paying user or a free user. A new user also doesn't immediately mean that we're talking about a music listener. We could instead consider the podcast or the audiobook listener, or maybe we're not talking about a listener at all. We're talking about a musician, producer of content on Spotify instead of a consumer of content. The point is that a question that seems straightforward actually turns out to have quite a few ambiguous elements, and there are no definitive right answers. And here's the twist. The interviewer is not there to provide direction for you when you're disambiguating or clarifying the problem statement. In fact, quite the opposite. They're looking for you to implement principle number 3, which is that you must demonstrate leadership. All those scenarios we just discussed, where you could make any number of choices about the direction of the interview, those are all decisions for you to make, not for the interviewer. You're driving the bus here, and your clarifications are decision points for you to make a choice one way or another and explain your decision to the interviewer. Product managers are cross-functional leaders, even when they don't have direct reports. And this is a product manager interview, so part of the assessment is how well you lead. This applies both to the clarification, disambiguation step, but also to every other prioritization, decision-making, and discussion point in the whole interview. So make active choices, explain your logic, state your decision-making framework, then decide. Don't default to the interviewer choosing every direction, because if they have to do that for you, you're not getting an offer. Remember, product managers are supposed to lead their teams, so lead the conversation. With the question and problem clearly identified and you confidently leading the conversation forward, we now get to principle number 4. Show how you think and make it structured. Because there isn't a single right answer, interviewers have to assess how you think and how you make decisions. So structure and demonstrate your thought process. Think about it like a roadmap. For this video, I told you we have 6 principles. We're on number 4 now, 2 more to go. Do the same thing in your interview. Create a table of contents as you talk. For example, first I'll clarify the goal, then define the users, then prioritize pain points, then propose solutions, then metrics, and then I'll cover go-to-market if time permits. Keep showing where you are and what's next. An important tactical element here is that I want you to do your brainstorming, meaning your thinking, separately from the structuring, organizational work. Do your brainstorming in silence on a piece of paper or on a screen that you're not sharing to the interviewer, and then organize and structure your brainstorm content in such a way that it actually appears structured to the interviewer and communicates clarity of thought. You're not always going to be able to do that on the fly. Of course, if you're doing this correctly, you might find yourself in an extended period of thinking and talking without checking in. So to keep the interview collaborative and signal rich for the interviewer, we use principle number 5. Temperature check as you go. Your job in the interview is to generate enough signal to allow the interviewer to create a strong write-up packet after speaking with you. As you go step by step through your structure, check in with your interviewer. Does this make sense so far? It's my favorite one. Or can we move on toward the next step of my plan, or would you like to dive deeper into this element? This keeps you from monologuing and invites probing by the interviewer where more signal may be needed. And when that probing introduces new information or challenges some of your assumptions, we arrive at our final principle, number 6. Demonstrate adaptability and a growth mindset. This single principle has made the biggest difference for me personally as an interviewer. I've often shifted my assessment of a candidate to a clear higher when this principle was demonstrated well. You're being logical throughout the interview, you're structuring your thoughts, you're sharing your thinking, you're welcoming new input. And if that new input from the interview challenges your assumptions, don't just react positively or negatively. Don't say, no, my thinking is better here, I think we'll just stick with it. And don't say, yes, of course, that's a great idea, and immediately accept any interviewer input. Instead, what I want you to do is weigh the new input against your structure, logic, and your earlier assumptions, and show the interviewer that you will consider all of this new information and evaluate it based on merit. That's an interesting thought. Give me a minute to weigh this against my initial assumptions. Since you've shared those assumptions, you can restate them, weigh the new information, then decide if your initial statements still hold. You can push back. Given these assumptions, your recommendation doesn't fit here, although it's an interesting idea. The original path still makes sense. If the new information breaks an assumption instead, you can say, this changes an underlying assumption of mine. I'm going to update it and sanity check whether it impacts the rest of my thinking. Give me a moment. That is adaptability. That demonstrates a growth mindset. If you nail all 6 of these principles, you're halfway to the offer. And if you want to know the rubric you're actively graded on during these interviews, click here.